Hi, friends. This is Lauren Taylor from Lauren Taylor Made, and I'm so honored to be here on the Scrapbook.com YouTube channel to share with you how I made this pink and orange Halloween card. I'm absolutely loving this color scheme, and it goes so well with the spooky pattern paper, which I have here in A2 size, and I'm going to be pairing it with the Trick or Treat and Spooky stamp sets, as well as this high A2 decorative die plate. So I have everything ready to go and sorted in my stash and stow organizer. I will grab some inks and pops of color later on, but let's get to stamping. Of course, I'm using my Misty in Rose Quartz exclusive to Scrapbook.com, and I have some alcohol marker friendly cardstock here inside my Misty, and I'm gathering my stamps that I'm going to be using for this card. I am going to do a little bit of masking just so my ghosts have their little witch hats on while I am coloring, because I didn't want to have to layer up any of my stamps after I cut them out. So I'm going to mask the hats on my ghosts. So once I figure out the placement, I'm going to grab my Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'm just giving my stamps a little bit of a wipe before I start inking them up because these are brand new, my first time using them. And I'm going to completely ink up all of the stamps with this black ink, and I end up stamping it twice to make sure I have a really nice clean crisp image, and of course using my stamp appendable from LDRS Creative, also in the exclusive rose quartz color. I use that just to help press down and make sure I have a nice clean stamped image. Once I have cleaned off my stamps, I'm going to do my masking, just grabbing some post-it notes I have here off to my side of my desk. And I'm just going to quickly stamp those two little witch hats. They don't need to be perfect at all because I'm just going to cut around them with my small scissors and then lay them on top of the stamped images to create that mask. When you're masking, you always want to make sure that you're stamping the image that you want to be in the front of your image. So my hat wants to be showing in front of the top of my ghosts. So I stamped those first, applied the masks, and now I will add my ghost images. If I was going to be stamping anything behind my ghosts, I would also mask those and then stamp again. But this is all I'm going to do for my layering with my stamps. Once I have my hats masked in place and my ghosts on my Misty, I went ahead and stamped those in the same jet black ink because they are alcohol, or this ink is alcohol marker friendly. So once I have all my images stamped down, I'm also going to work on stamping my sentiment. So I know I wanted the boo sentiment as well as ghostly greetings, and I went through my inks and I decided to pick some that I thought matched the spooky paper pad well. So I went with Candy Shop Pink, which is a Scrapbook.com hybrid ink pad. And then I also brought out my VersaFine and Onyx Black, which I'm going to use for stamping in black, my secondary part of my sentiment. So the boo is going to be in pink. And I did the same thing. I wiped my stamp down since I wanted to make sure it was clean before I used it the first time. But I had got a little bit of black ink accidentally on my stamp, but no problem. I stamped it again and that turned out really nice. So I'm going to use that one on my final card. And then I'm bringing in that secondary sentiment and I'm just going to stamp it in black. Again, the VersaFine and Onyx Black. I thought maybe orange would also look really good, but I knew I wanted to pick an orange background and I wanted to make sure my sentiments really were visible on an orange background. So I'm bringing over my spooky pattern paper so I can make sure I incorporate the right colors, and I grabbed a bunch of my different Colorista alcohol markers, and I'm just going to do some really quick coloring here. I'm not doing anything fancy. These images are so cute on their own, so I just wanted to put in a little bit of color to match the color scheme. Again, I'm matching the adorable colors of the spooky pattern paper. So I'm coloring in my little cauldron, my pumpkin. I will bring in blue for my ghosts. I realized that I kind of wanted them to have more of a translucent kind of look to them, so I did bring in blue for that. But you could have used yellow or even a light pink, just to have, a lot of fun coloring in all of these images. Again, I just wanted to pick lots of pinks and oranges and yellows to match my pattern paper. I'm just going through, not really adding too much shadow. I will go in and add a little bit of shadow once I'm all done to my pumpkin and my little pink witch's hat, as well as my pink house. But honestly, I went with really simple coloring. I just wanted it to look very cartoon and cutesy, which I think is the whole fun of vibe of these stamp sets. So color however you would like to if you're replicating this card. Maybe you really like colored pencils or you like watercoloring. Zig markers are great for this as well. But I was very excited to bring out my Colorista markers and have them match so wonderfully with the paper pad. Once I'm all done coloring, I'm going to grab my medium-sized scissors and just kind of trim around everything. I am going to save the scrap paper for a future project, and then I will use my smaller scissors to trim around all of my images. So I'll start here with my boo sentiment, and then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut the rest off camera so you don't have to see me cutting all of my images, as then we would be here for a really long time. I have them ready to go in one of my little stack and sort trays. I absolutely love these trays. I use them every project. And I'm peeling off my high cover plate die. Again, it's my first time using it, so the tape was strong. I'm going to pick out 3 different patterns from this pattern paper. I'm definitely using this moon and star orange one as my background. It's one of my favorites in the pack. I grabbed these eyes on the black pattern paper cardstock, and then I'm also bringing out that pink. I really love the design on this, but we're actually going to use the other side, which is the solid pink cardstock. I did a quick kind of dry run of how everything was going to lay out, so I knew exactly how I wanted to cut my pattern paper. So I'm going to start with using my high cover plate on the pink paper. Again, I'm using the solid side instead of the pattern side, which almost breaks my heart because that pattern is my favorite thing ever right now. But because my paper is A2 and I'm using an A2 cover plate, I'm going to use some mint tape to help me make sure that that paper is not going to move while I'm running it through my Spellbinders P6. Again, this is I have the black one. It's a little off camera, but I love the pink plates. One of my favorite things about Scrapbook.com exclusive is all of the beautiful pink. So once I ran that through, I took out my high, making sure not to forget the little tittle, the little dot of the eye. And then I'm going to repeat that with the black cardstock with the white little spooky eyes on them. So after that, I will start assembling my border together, which is going to be my high sentiment. And to do that, I'm going to start with actually cutting out the word high and just having that rectangle frame. So I'm going to grab my scissors and do that now. And once I have the rectangle frame, I'm actually going to cut that in half as well, but I'm going to cut it across the diagonal. So I'm going to cut it in one corner, just cut it right in half, and then go across the other way and cut the other corner. And this is just going to help me with creating a frame underneath my pink high sentiment, my cover. So I'm going to grab my Artiste glue. I already have my fine point tip in, and I'm going to add glue to one of the sides and the top. So the top and right side, so it fits that little L frame I have of the spooky eyes. And I'm going to glue it down so that way it creates kind of like a mat for my frame. So it's showing just under and just to the inside of my pink high. And I'm going to trim off the excess paper that would be showing past the A2 size of the card. So this would be kind of sticking out past those 4¼ by 5½ dimension. And just like I did with that, I'm going to also glue the other corner down. And I will again grab my Artiste glue and just add some glue to the inside of that frame, going right up to the edge there. And then I will glue down the second one. As you can see, I still had my mint tape from die cutting, but that's not really going to affect anything, so I didn't try peeling it off. It's all going to be covered and glued down anyway. Once I have that kind of matting to my frame, I think that looks really cool. I love that it kind of gives that drop shadow effect that I like to do with my sentiments, but this is on the inside of the frame. Again, I will trim off anything that would go past my A2 size to be laying on my card, so those little edges and corners of my frame. Now I'm going to create the drop shadow look with my high. So I will add again my Artiste glue. I'm going to add glue completely behind my H and my I. And I'm going to line up where it meets the black on the left and then creates kind of a drop shadow to the bottom right of my pink. And so that means it will overlap only on one side, on the I side, because I lined up where the H starts to the edge of that black paper. And now I have a fun little secondary frame using the same die. It has my pink high and then the drop shadow, and it also is on the inside of the pink frame. I know that I'm going to glue it to my orange background here, but I want my house to be in the background as well. I have some, dimension here. I'm going to have larger items in the front like my cauldron and pumpkin, and my house is smaller. So in order to have that perspective, I'm going to put it further back in my scene and behind my sentiment. So now I'm going to grab my tape runner. This is the dotted refillable adhesive roller, and I'm going to cover all 4 sides of this high cover plate front of my card. I'm also going to add some adhesive behind my house, and I will add a little bit behind my H and I as well. And then because my little ghost is kind of floating off to the side there, I'm just going to use my Artiste glue for him. And I'm going to glue this to my orange background pattern paper. Again, all from the Spooky A2 pattern paper collection. I want to make sure it's lined up nicely, which is why I really love the dotted adhesive runner, because it gives me a chance to make sure I have everything in place before it's stuck down there for good. Now, the only place I didn't add some adhesive was behind the loop of my H, so just grabbing my Artiste glue to glue that down. I'm going to use my Artiste glue to also glue the tittle of my eye to finish off the background, I guess you could say, of this card and the beginning of my sentiment. So I'm using my reverse tweezers to glue down the black cardstock first. Again, I'm creating kind of a drop shadow, so I want it to be to the bottom right. And then using my tweezers and glue again for the pink. I'm going to go ahead and put this onto an A2 card base, because I'm going to start putting my images, and I'm going to grab some pops of color, and I have a tendency to get carried away and forget to glue my card front to my card base before putting on my pops of color. So I have my top folding A2, and I'm using my runner again to add adhesive, and I'll go ahead and attach this to the front of my card base. I'm going to press it down, making sure it's nice and secure on the front of my card, and then we can move on to the fun part of adding in the cute little images from the 2 stamp sets. A lot of my images will be popped up using some foam adhesive, so I'm grabbing all of the different kinds of adhesive that Scrapbook.com offers. And I'm going to use different sizes depending on how I am gluing down each of these images. So I'm going to start with just showing you the boo. I use some large squares and as well as my strips, my foam strips, to pop up my boo sentiment. So my overall sentiment is going to be "Hi Boo, ghostly greetings." And I'm peeling off the release paper behind my boo sentiment, and I'm going to glue that just below the high. And then I'm going to use foam adhesive as well, just one little strip behind my ghostly greetings, and I'm going to put that right underneath my boo. I decided to go ahead and use my liquid adhesive to glue my cauldron down, so that way I could pop up my pumpkin and it wouldn't be too much coming up off the card. And then I also added foam adhesive behind my 2 little witch ghosts, so I'm going to get those glued down as well. I am bringing out a white jelly roll pen, and I'm just adding some little highlights around my images, anywhere where I think it just needs a little bit of that white highlight touch. I don't really have any rhyme or reason for adding these highlights right now, because my light source isn't really set on this card, so I'm just putting it where I think it looks cute. Finally, I'm going to add some glittery touches by using the Black Magic Glitter Pops of Color. I'm going to put them, I think I do 5 total, just anywhere around the card. I like doing my liquid embellishments in odd numbers, so that's why I picked 5. And I'm tapping on the inside of the card to give them more of an enamel dot look rather than that Hershey Kiss look that sometimes liquid embellishments can get. Here is a final close-up of my Haibu Halloween card inspired by the spooky patterned paper. I absolutely love these products together and I hope you enjoyed crafting along with me today. You can find everything I used linked down below in the description, and thank you again to Scrapbook.com for having me here today. Bye!